Welcome to our deep dive into the real-world inspiration, I guess you could say, behind Gabriel García Márquez's 100 Years of Solitude. We're going to uncover how Macondo, that legendary town, isn't just, a figment of his imagination, but really a tapestry woven from actual places, people, and history in northern Colombia.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Garcia Marquez's magical realism, that blend of fantasy and reality isn't just, a stylistic choice or anything like that, but it's deeply rooted in the landscape and history of his homeland.
For sure.
He took all those incredible stories, that culture he witnessed, and just kind of poured it all into his writing.
Exactly. And we have articles and travel logs, even firsthand accounts to kind of piece this together.
Wow.
So let's start in Aracataca,
Okay.
the town where Garcia Marquez was born and raised.
Right.
It's considered like the heart of Macondo.
Yeah.
I was reading an article from the BBC,
Uh-huh.
and they even called it Garcia Marquez's childhood hometown.
Yeah, Aracataca is more than just a birthplace. It's like stepping right into the novel. You can visit the actual house where he grew up. It's a museum now.
The actual house.
Yeah.
I can only imagine those rooms, those stories just echoing in the walls.
Yeah, and it's full of details that come straight out of the novel.
Oh, wow.
Like, for instance, you can see his grandfather's workshop where he used to make little golden fish.
Okay.
Incredibly similar to Colonel Aureliano Buendia in the book, who crafts those golden fish only to melt them back down into lumps of gold.
Wow. So there's like little lumps.
Yeah.
What do you make of that parallel? I mean, is that just a coincidence or?
Well, it makes you think about the novel's themes, of cyclical history.
Right.
That kind of futile chase for something you can't quite grasp.
Yeah, like those golden fish.
Exactly.
They represent something that you just can't quite ever get a hold of.
Absolutely. Almost like a yearning for something more.
So the magical elements, they were already there, right? Like in his childhood in the workshop.
Exactly. And it's not just the workshop either. There's the kitchen, too, where his grandmother would make candied animals. Very much like Ursula Iguaran's creations in the book.
Right.
Those little details take on a whole new meaning when we see them mirrored like that.
It's incredible how something so ordinary can become extraordinary when you view it through the lens of 100 Years of Solitude.
Right.
So tell me more about Aracataca.
Sure.
What else did you find in our sources?
So think about the train station in Aracataca.
Okay.
The story goes that, butterflies would get swept away by the breeze from those passing trains.
Mm-hmm.
This really echoes the arrival of the railroad in Macondo in the book, that symbol of change and modernity that disrupts this quiet little town's isolation.
It's almost like the butterflies represent something being lost, right?
Yeah.
Like their innocence or the tranquility of the past.
Absolutely.
And all those tiny connections between the real world and the fictional one.
Right.
They make Aracataca so captivating to anyone who loves that book.
For sure. And from what I've read, even the town itself has really embraced its connection to the novel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll see businesses named after Macondo.
Wow.
There are murals depicting scenes from the book and even statues of Garcia Marquez himself.
So they're really celebrating it.
Oh, absolutely. They're very proud of it.
Let's move on to another spot that was mentioned a lot in our research.
Okay.
Ciénaga.
Okay.
About 60 kilometers north of Aracataca.
Uh-huh.
This place is more than just a beautiful coastal town, though.
Right.
It had a very significant part in a pretty dark chapter of Colombian history.
Yeah.
The Banana Massacre of 1928.
That's right. And this is where you see that Garcia Marquez's use of magical realism goes beyond, just embellishing the story.
Right.
He takes this brutal event, this massacre, all these striking banana workers,
Yeah.
and reflects it in Macondo, leaving only one survivor.
Wow. So he's weaving real historical events into the story.
Exactly.
Not just drawing inspiration from the locations.
Yeah. But some people would say that fictionalizing a tragedy like that could trivialize it or even make it seem romantic.
I can see that.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
But by reimagining the massacre in Macondo,
Yeah.
I think Garcia Marquez forces us to confront that cyclical nature of violence.
Right.
And the ways that history can repeat itself, even in a fantastical setting.
Right.
It's as if he's saying that even in a world with magic, these horrors can still happen.
We can't just escape them.
Right.
It adds another layer to the story.
It does.
The weight of history, the potential for it to happen again, even in Macondo.
Right.
Are there any specific landmarks in Ciénaga that we see in the book?
Well, there's a statue of a banana worker in the town, a memorial to the victims of the massacre.
Okay.
It's much like the ghosts of the past that linger in Macondo.
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
It's like this physical reminder that even in a town with so much magic, the weight of history can't be ignored.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the San Juan Bautista Church in Ciénaga.
Uh-huh.
It was actually damaged in a fire
Oh.
during the War of a Thousand Days in Colombia.
Oh.
And that conflict really parallels the destruction and rebuilding of the church in 100 Years of Solitude.
Oh.
It's like the town itself is mirroring the cyclical nature of creation and destruction that we see throughout the novel.
It's fascinating how blurred the lines between fiction and reality are in Garcia Marquez's work.
It really is.
Speaking of blurred lines, what about that Ciénaga Grande de Santa Marta swamp?
Oh, yeah.
It's the largest swamp in Colombia, I read.
It is. It's huge.
That has to be the inspiration for that great swamp that Melquiades the Gypsy navigates, right?
You're exactly right. The Ciénaga Grande, this place of mystery and beauty, it perfectly embodies that kind of landscape that just lends itself to magical realism.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising at all that he drew inspiration from it for Melquiades' journey.
It's really amazing how many of the novel's fantastical elements are actually rooted in these real places in Colombia.
It's as if the land itself is speaking to him, whispering stories that he then transforms into literature.
This deep dive is really eye-opening. It's amazing to think how he took those real-world elements and turned them into something so extraordinary.
It speaks to his genius as a writer, wouldn't you say?
I would definitely agree.
I mean, he was able to capture the essence of a place, the heart of a story, and weave it all into this tapestry that resonates with so many people around the world.
I'm ready for the next stop on our literary journey. Where to next?
Okay.
Okay, so we've explored Aracataca and Ciénaga, those two places that definitely influenced 100 Years of Solitude. But what other locations hold a key to understanding his world,
Let's go northeast now to Riohacha,
Right.
the largest city in La Guajira.
Uh-huh.
This place has a deep personal connection to Garcia Marquez.
Oh, really? How so?
It's where he was conceived.
Wow.
So you could say Riohacha represents like a pre-Macondo.
Right, a starting
It's
point.
a starting point.
Not just for the characters in the book, but for Garcia Marquez's family as well.
Right. It mirrors the characters in the novel leaving their homes to, go create Macondo.
Right.
Garcia Marquez's own family relocated from Riohacha to Aracataca.
So migration and starting new are really woven into the novel and his life.
Absolutely.
Is there more to Riohacha than just being a geographical starting point, though?
Oh, yeah. Riohacha is full of history and legends.
Like what?
Well, think about the pirate raids in 100 Years of Solitude.
Uh-huh.
Riohacha was a frequent target for pirates.
So that wasn't just made up
Nope, drawing on real events.
to create that sense of danger.
Exactly.
And what about Remedios the Beauty?
Yes.
Is there a connection there to Riohacha?
The city has a strong devotion to its patron, Saint Nuestra Señora de los Remedios,
Yep.
and the name Remedios pops up throughout the book.
Another connection between reality and fiction.
Another layer.
It's fascinating. I mean,
All right.
it's like we're peeling back the surface of this novel, seeing
Yeah.
all these little connections.
Uh-huh.
That really add to its meaning.
Absolutely. And here's a really interesting detail.
What's that?
There's a story about a priest in Riohacha
Okay.
who was said to be able to levitate.
A levitating priest.
Yeah,
Now that's some serious magical realism.
right.
Did that make it into the book?
Well, it's believed that this priest was the inspiration for Father Nicanor Reina in the book.
Oh, right. The one that casually levitates while drinking his chocolate.
That's the one.
It's really unbelievable how blurry the lines are between his imagination and what he actually experienced.
And that leads us to something else really important about Riohacha and La Guajira.
What's that?
This region is home to the Wayúu people, an indigenous group whose culture and language are so deeply a part of 100 Years of Solitude.
The Wayúu, I remember Visitación and Cator.
Yes.
They worked for the Buendia family.
Exactly.
They were Wayúu, right?
That's right. Garcia Marquez grew up around the Wayúu culture and even learned some of their language, Wayúu Nike. And he deliberately included elements of their culture in the novel through those characters.
It's fascinating. He wasn't just drawing inspiration from places and events, but also from all these different cultures in Colombia.
Right.
What parts of Wayúu culture did he specifically use?
Well, dreams are really important to the Wayúu people.
Okay.
They see dreams as a way to connect with the spiritual world and reality,
Okay.
and also a way to foretell events or talk to spirits.
Wait a minute. That sounds really familiar.
Does it?
Dreams and premonitions are everywhere in 100 Years of Solitude.
Exactly.
Ursula's prophetic dreams, all the nightmares. the sense that everything keeps happening over and over again.
Yeah.
It's like that cyclical time we were talking about earlier.
The prominence of dreams and their power in the novel really comes from that Wayúu cosmology.
So he's not just including Wayúu characters,
Right.
just to have them there.
It's deeper than that.
He's including their beliefs, their whole worldview.
Yeah, he's really integrating them into the very essence of the story.
It's a much deeper way of engaging with the culture than I realized.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that he wasn't just borrowing from them.
Right.
He had a real respect for the Wayúu people and their traditions.
Yeah.
He saw how rich and complex their culture was.
Right.
And he knew it would make his story even better.
It's like we're piecing together this puzzle.
Yes.
Connecting Macondo to the real world.
Exactly.
And we're just getting started.
We're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to uncover, so many layers of meaning in his work, but to really grasp how powerful his magical realism is, we need to go even deeper into the Wayúu influence.
Okay.
It takes us beyond just geographical locations and into like cosmology and spirituality.
You've got me intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's explore that deeper connection between their worldview and the magical realism of 100 Years of Solitude.
You know, as we've been going through all these different locations, it's become so clear that Garcia Marquez wasn't just trying to, recreate reality in 100 Years of Solitude.
Right.
He was transforming it.
Yeah, I agree. He took all those raw materials, the landscapes, the history, the culture of Colombia, and turned them into something magical, something universal.
Exactly. And the Wayúu influence adds a whole other dimension to that transformation.
In what way?
Well, think about their concept of time.
Okay.
It's not linear like ours. It's cyclical, much like the repeating patterns of events and characters in the book.
You're right. The Buendias are kind of trapped in this cycle of good and bad fortune that just keeps repeating.
Right. It's like history isn't moving forward in a straight line, but spiraling in on itself.
Right. And for the Wayúu, dreams are a way to access this cyclical time, right?
Exactly. They can glimpse into the past and the future and communicate with ancestors and spirits.
That makes Ursula's prophetic dreams even more meaningful.
Absolutely. It's not just a plot device. It's a reflection of their beliefs.
Right.
And then there's the Wayúu concept of puchapu.
Okay.
It means the heart of things.
Okay.
Like the essence of something, its soul,
And how does that connect to 100 Years of Solitude?
Think about how he describes Macondo.
Okay.
It's not just a town. It's like a living thing.
Right.
With its own puchapu, its own soul. It's born, it grows, it decays, and eventually it dies.
It's like Macondo itself becomes a character.
Exactly.
Experiencing the same cycles of life and death as the people who live there.
That's it. And I think that merging of the real and the magical, the physical and the spiritual, that's what makes this book so powerful.
Yeah, it's not just a fantasy. It's a way of seeing the world.
Right.
That finds magic in everyday things.
Exactly.
And the connection between everything.
So why do you think all of this is important to us as readers? I mean, why should we care about these real-life inspirations behind Macondo?
I think it makes us understand the book better.
Yeah.
And appreciate Garcia Marquez's genius even more. When we get the cultural and historical context,
Right.
we can see the layers of meaning in his stories.
It's like we've unlocked a secret code
I like that.
to help us see the symbolism and allegory that we might have missed before.
And it makes the magic feel even stronger knowing it came from something real.
Exactly. It reminds us that stories have power.
Definitely.
They take us to other worlds, introduce us to new ideas, and help us find the magic in our own lives.
And 100 Years of Solitude reminds us that the extraordinary can be found in the ordinary.
Yes.
That history and myth can be intertwined.
Exactly.
And that a little town in Colombia can inspire a story that everyone can relate to.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Garcia Marquez, through his incredible storytelling, reminds us that the line between reality and fantasy is blurry.
Right.
And that the magic we're all looking for might be right in front of us.
Hidden in plain sight.
And the people we meet, the places we go, and the stories we tell.
I love that. So this deep dive into 100 Years of Solitude ends not with a clear answer, but with a question.
What's that?
Could our own Macondo exist out there somewhere? A place where the real and the fantastical are one. Maybe it's somewhere we've already been, or a place we haven't found yet. The important thing is to keep exploring and never stop looking for the magic in our own lives.